Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I would like to start by paying tribute to the Honourable Member for Lewisham Western Penge for bringing this very important debate. To think clearly about prison, we need to think about victims. And we must begin very strongly from the statement that the prime responsibility of the government is to protect the public. Particularly clear at the moment, where we're dealing with the horror of knife crime. We need to be absolutely clear, and we are indeed clear in this government, and I hope on all sides of the House, in our abhorrence of crime and the misery that it inflicts on victims, and our absolute commitment to punish criminals in proportion to their offence and ensure, above all, that serious criminals must be imprisoned. And we can go beyond that. Because the point is that somebody who commits an offence is not simply technically breaking the law. Somebody, for example, who is a shoplifter is imposing misery on the individual that owns a private shop, stealing valuable possessions, affecting their psychological sense of security. And therefore, in responding to that act, we need, as the Honourable Member from Bromley and Chislehurst has pointed out, to make sure that we punish for the crime they committed, to give justice to the victim, but also to protect future victims of crime. And this is the nub of it. In punishing, punishment needs to be combined with deterrence, needs to be combined with rehabilitation, needs to express symbolically society's abhorrence of crime. All that is true, and all that was recognised by the Right Honourable Member for South Holland and the Deeping. But where I respectfully disagree with him, and am regretful that he did not stay to hear the response, is that he must be more rigorous and serious in thinking through whether, in fact, a short-term prison sentence does achieve any of the objectives that he wants to achieve. Let me take a single example. In Bedford Prison last month, I saw a prisoner who had been a heroin addict with serious learning difficulties. Every time he's released from prison, he shoplifts again and he gets put back in prison for 4 weeks. He was put in prison, Bedford Prison, 8 times last year. 8 times last year. And my question, Mr. Chair, to you, and indeed to the Honourable Member for South Holland and the Deeping, is what does it achieve to put this man in prison 8 times in a year? Clearly, it is not deterring him for committing crime, because he commits another crime as soon as he comes out. Clearly, it is not rehabilitating him, because he commits another crime as soon as he comes out. He does not personally experience this even as a punishment. So what is being done here? Well, perhaps the judge feels they have no other options because this individual has committed many other crimes in the past. What else are they supposed to do? What else are they supposed to do? But what does this do? What does it achieve? And again, perhaps the judge feels that this is symbolic disapproval of the act of shoplifting. But what kind of symbolism is this if it is untethered from reality? What is the symbolism of a punishment which does not deter, does not punish, does not rehabilitate, and isn't experienced subjectively by the victim or by society as having any purpose at all? And then we need to think about prisons themselves. Prisons are vast, complex, expensive organs of government. Modern prison costs over £100 million to build. It's manned by hundreds of highly trained prison officers, filled with electronic equipment, bars on windows, a continual fight day in, day out, requiring energy and dedication to stay on top of the drugs, to stay on top of the phones, to challenge violence from prisoners, violence against prison officers, to control issues of suicide and self-harm, and above all, to protect the public from the most serious offenders in society. But these short-term prisoners destabilize the whole prison system. It is they who are bringing the drugs disproportionately into the prison, because they're the people going in and out of the prison 8 times in a year. So if a criminal gang is looking for somebody to carry drugs in, they target the short-term prisoner, not somebody who is in for 25 years who has no opportunity to bring them in. These are the people who disproportionately have the learning difficulties, disproportionately have the addiction problems, disproportionately are connected to violence against prison officers, violence against themselves, who absorb disproportionately far more time in the system than should be attributed to these individuals, distracting the entire system from focusing on rehabilitating and working with the serious criminals, the sex offenders, the violent offenders, the murderers who pose a significant threat to the public and who, because of the distraction of this cohort, are not getting the education, the programs, the work, the protection that they require. Now, we can, of course, as the Honourable Member for Enfield Southgate has pointed out, do much more in relation to community sentences. We have just introduced GPS-enabled tagging. That allows us for the first time to know exactly where an offender is by the minute, day in, day out in the community. We've introduced alcohol and drug monitoring tags, which for the first time allow us to know whether this individual outside a prison is taking drugs or taking alcohol in violation of their conditions. We are improving unpaid work. We're investing in the CRCs to make sure there is much better supervision in place, make sure they're meeting people face to face, make sure they have a proper plan in place to follow them through. We're investing in the NHS on addiction treatment. Now again, with deference to the Honourable Member, South Holland and the Deeping, this isn't just liberal nonsense. 74% of the people who are shoplifting, 74%, and shoplifting is by far the largest element in the under 6-month prison population, 74% are addicted to heroin or crack cocaine. And there is a direct causative relation between their addiction to heroin or crack cocaine and their shoplifting. That investment in NHS treatment requirements, as the Honourable Member for Motherwell and Wishaw has pointed out, is going to be absolutely central if we are to reduce their reoffending. Which brings us to the final key point, which is that putting these people in prison is not simply futile, it is actually perverse. It isn't simply a waste of time, it actually makes the situation worse. It doesn't protect the public, it endangers the public. The amount of research that has been done on this is now very, very considerable. Right? The Institute of Economic and Social Research did a paper in 2012, the Ministry of Justice did another paper in 2013. We've just produced another paper which looks at 130 variables, 350,000 offenders. We're looking at everything from offender demographics to school attendance, family, childhood and trauma in order to produce, with a very large number of people, a very statistically significant survey comparing like with like. Taking, for example, two people, both of whom have committed 7 offences, both of whom have almost identical, insofar as we can, and we're looking at statistical variation of 5%, almost identical backgrounds and offending histories. The one that is given the custodial sentence, as opposed to the one that is given the community sentence, is more likely to commit 1 extra offence a year. And that's 50,000 people getting those custodial offences. That's 50,000 more victims of crime through the wrong type of short prison sentence. Now, there's much that we should still learn from Scotland. There's much that we need to reflect on. It is important to bring yourself, Mr. Chair, and the Right Honourable Member for South Holland and the Deeping with us on this. We need to keep public confidence on this. He may be correct that if we were to go in front of an audience without the time to present incredibly serious and detailed research, it would be possible, through cheap language about decriminalisation and laxity, to whip up a crowd against this. I don't doubt it. But the evidence is absolutely clear. And we should be bold in asking, what are we trying to achieve with either a prison or a community sentence? Is this prison sentence really deterring this individual? Is it really rehabilitating? And above all, is it really protecting the public? Thank you very much indeed.